Hello, everyone. Welcome to the No Line Podcast. I'm the host, Philip Beer, and I'm seated today with Ashish from Light and Wonder. He's VP of Procurement, correct,
Procurement.
Ashish?
Yes.
And Steve from Galaxy Gaming. He is VP of Product. Steve, Ashish, welcome.
Good to be
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you for being here. And we're talking about the Executive Development Program that you recently completed at UNLV. And the topic of the program this session was to come up with a plan for an integrated resort for Thailand. Take us through your strategy, your attack mode for how to attack this topic of an integrated resort in Thailand. What were the instructions, and then how did you go about executing?
Yeah, the instructions were really basic, right? In terms of what we were looking to do. One of the idea was, it wasn't just opening a integrated resort to make money. It's about how can we help the government there in Thailand, and how do we also include the cultural element of Thailand into our integrated resort. And then there was obviously some requirement in terms of the financial piece, like how much license fee we will have to pay the Thai government, as well as a requirement from the Thai government that if the locals needed to enter to the casino, they will pay 5,000 baht, I believe, as a fee. So there was some of those requirements. And also, as we look at integrated resort, like the location and how are we going to tackle certain things such as sex trafficking, the gambling requirements, and what are we going to do to make sure, the people don't over gamble as well. So there was like those requirements, and then we had a lot of latitude in terms of coming up with the design and what we wanted to do, as long as the proposal is realistic and logical in sense.
Yeah, I would say to kind of add to Ashish, it was equal parts. I would say the actual money-making side of things, which you would consider, the resort, the amenities, the rooms, everything around what a resort is.
Yes.
So that was, 50% of it per se. The other 50 was essentially what Ashish said. It's about the community portion of it. So the idea was, you're not looking to just present a business case that says you will make a lot of money. The business case should say, not only will that happen, but these are the benefits for that, and how you will think the actual terminology was how you will hit the heart, how you will win the hearts and minds of the people, the government in a sense as well. What will this do? What good will it do other than just say, a lot of tax revenues and, a lot of people will be rich? That wasn't where this comes from. There was a need for this. So, if this was the 15th integrated resort in Thailand, that's a different story. But this was the one and only in the way it was presented. So why now? Why this one? What good will come of it? And that was really the tricky part, or the part that we had to focus on our strategy is don't focus so much on how beautiful it looks and, how grand the design is. Just also you have to focus on what will be the benefit that comes out, not necessarily just economic, but economic, how will it flow through to the people?
Yeah. And the thing in the scenario playing was that the government is skeptical about opening, casino resort in Thailand. So it's like, how do you win, as Steve mentioned, the hearts of the people, that this is not going to create an issue in Thailand, but it's actually economically as well culturally, right, from a socially responsible integrated resort that's going to help. It's going to be a win-win for both the company that is opening one as well as supporting the Thailand itself. And then it had to be a green property. That was also the requirement. The integrated resort would be a green.
You said it had to be a green property.
Yes.
Meaning
in terms of sustainability, exactly.
We're going to get to all that. I think before we get there, we'll set the backdrop a little bit for the integrated resort in Thailand, which is, as you mentioned, there is some resistance. Part of that might be the Buddhist culture. Part of it's the government. Others have identified that the instability of the Thai government plays an issue. Meanwhile, surrounded by Thailand, you have integrated resorts in Cambodia and Vietnam and Philippines and Macau and Singapore. So the roadmap is already kind of there. And we know that in Thailand, gambling is quite popular. It's just being done illegally. So with that being the backdrop, where do you take it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you said it right there. I think that last part kind of says it all. We know that gambling is happening, and we had a presentation early on that basically talked about how a lot of the now current jurisdictions that allow gambling, how it was back then when they were first, dipping their toes in the waters of gambling, how it was looked down upon, how it was looked to bring in, kind of like a seedy element. And it took, it took a lot of work to make it just another form of entertainment. And that's really where you would want it to be. Our sort of leader there, the MC of the group, Dr. Bo Bernhard, I think he coins it the fun economy, entertainment, sports, all those things, if done correctly, when you legitimize it, when you, run compliance through it, rules, regulations, laws, and really enforce it, then it just becomes fun entertainment that you can kind of wrap, your arms around. When it's this sort of underground thing that is happening, that makes it a lot tougher. And then it goes into all these other aspects of the social, economic sort of things that you want to veer away from. So that was really the backdrop for it, is why, like we said, why is it? It's happening. Let's try to control it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. One question that's at the top of everyone's mind is the location. What location did you decide on in Thailand in regard to city, and why?
Yeah, so we actually debated a lot around location, whether, we wanted to open one in Bangkok, Phuket, Pattaya, and also another location in consideration was Incheon City in Thailand, right? So we kind of discuss a lot, like what location makes sense. And financially speaking, right, if you were just in it to make it money, Bangkok would have made a lot of choice for us, but we weren't just there to make money, right? We really wanted to, yes, we have to be financial viable business, but we also wanted to help local economy and help grow that community. So we ended up selecting Pattaya as a location to build our resort. The couple of reasons why is, one, the Pattaya was closer to the beach from a land availability, but also gives access from a different mode of transportation. So like a waterboat was another way you can come. It wasn't that far from the international arrival to take the flight. And then Thai government were also investing heavily in making Pattaya like an international airport. So the infrastructure was building around that community already. And that is one of the reasons why we selected Pattaya as a location. And it has a good amount of visitors already, right? So you had that customer base that is already coming. And the other thought went in is like, how can we help change the reputation, right? If you think of Pattaya, I think first thing, it's well known for its beaches, but also a sex tourism, right? That comes to mind. So having a resort there that kind of helps diversify that economy and also help kind of clean up the reputation that Pattaya carries, right, in this fun economy. So that's why we kind of selected the Pattaya as a location. Not sure, Steve.
Yeah, I would just, the only thing I would add kind of more to your point is, just like in most locations, as you as you kind of go away from the main city center hub, there's less opportunity. There's longer drives for folks. The economics aren't necessarily there. Even if you have kind of a resort town, beach town, it's not necessarily to the benefit specifically of the local residents there. So, the idea was to kind of increase that area of opportunity of economic development, from Bangkok basically and Pattaya, so that, you can kind of get a bigger reach instead of just centering it in one spot where there are ample opportunities, enough, where maybe not so much in Pattaya, but as Ashish said, the infrastructure improvements, there's more economic development happening there. It just seemed like the right place. It wasn't, the transportation made sense, the length, knowing that this would probably be, in our estimates, sort of a destination resort, a destination vacation. So, going a little bit, away from the Bangkok airport would be okay. You're going to spend some time there anyway. Plus, a really close airport was being built up. So it kind of the best of both worlds. And, honestly, we all wanted sort of that idealistic beachfront resort. When you go to a place like Thailand, that is kind of what everybody thought of, the beaches. So it just sort of, we had to talk our way not to do it, and we're doing it anyway. So
And who did you select for the operator?
Well, essentially, we're the operator.
We were the operator.
We're sort of the developers and the operators. We're presenting that business case.
What style of casino would you envision for Thailand? Would it be like an MGM? Would it be more similar to Singapore, or?
I would say more like similar to Singapore.
Because we think the tourist. Yeah, sorry.
Go.
I was going to say we envisioned that it would be similar tourist demographics that would visit each. There would be some, instead of maybe going to Singapore, Macau, at times they would, come to Thailand. There would be a lot more travel, but of the same sort of demographics and people. So the idea was, to make something that obviously is well liked, right? They're popular. We didn't need to really, in a sense, reinvent the wheel, but we did want to, put our stamp on it.
Now, in Thailand, there's a lot of illegal online gambling. What happens to online gambling once an integrated resort is launched in Thailand?
Yeah, so we talked about, I would say a little bit of iGaming piece, like how that's going to fit into our casino model. And one of the things we did decide is we are going to offer online gaming within the vicinity of our casino, and we're going to control that through geofencing piece, right? So as the user, they are within that premise, then they can play the games on their phone, tablet, whatever. But soon as they leave that location, the game will not work, right? So that's, like you mentioned, is already happening. Is how do we kind of legalize it, and also in a controlled manner that it doesn't get out of hand. And that was one of the suggestions that we made in our proposal as well.
Mm-hmm. And what other, would you identify some core challenges that you kind of found that still remain if Thailand's going to launch this integrated resort?
That's kind of a tough one. I mean, I think the core challenges are all on that community side of things that we talked about, that 50-50 split, because, as it comes to the economic aspect of it, I think it's going to be economically viable. The tourism is there, the desire, people are already gaming. The tourists that would come from there are already gamers that go elsewhere. Now this is another location. So I think that part, the business end of things, is already there. But it's how will that benefit? The idea, you have people playing sort of on the black market, you have illegal gaming out there. How do you make sure you draw in more onto the legal side? I think inherently, if everything is the same, most people would want to do things the legal way instead of, looking over your shoulder. So I think just as a matter of course, that will happen anyway. But it's also making a kind of walking the walk, not just talking the talk, on how our resort will benefit the community. What will we do? That was the I think trickiest part from my perspective, is kind of put your money where your mouth is. What will you do? How will that benefit? What are you going to do to make sure that the locals see improvements, whether it's the crime, the reputation, the economics, the opportunities, anything like that. That's what really the sell was. Everybody was going to make a really fantastic resort, but it was that next step.
It was winning over the local communities there, right? Because that was the biggest concern that Thai government had. If you were to do this, how is that going to impact? And we kind of suggest a lot of the ideas to make the community around us better, really develop it, whether that was providing the job trainings to the local, because we will need a bigger workforce to do hire like 10,000 plus employees to run the resort. So we were going to provide that training. We were going to invest a certain percentage of our revenue back in the CSR activities, whether that was job training or building the infrastructure, providing that economic opportunities to the small businesses where they can scale up their local businesses to support our resort needs in the future, right? So we suggest a lot of those programs that will make the community around us better, financially as well as socially.
When you have these group meetings for 5 or 6 days in a row, there's probably certain elements or features to the design or the plan that each of you get most excited about. Mm-hmm. Or you might even come home and tell your wife, hey, check this out. What we're going to add to this, property. We're going to make, and you kind of look around you and say, how can we make things better? So you look at existing resorts, whether in Asia or even in the US, and say, how can we make it even cooler? What are some of those items?
Yeah. So some of the things we thought through, right? Like we wanted to build a resort that has a cultural meaning, but without, making it like any sort of offensive thing, like using Buddha. So what the design we chose, the name, I'll kind of touch base on the name, right? So it's kind of started with the name, because name then gave the birth to what the location will look like. So the name we chose for our resort is called the Maha Resort. The Maha is the Buddhist word, also has a tie to the Hinduism. Maha means great, right? If you translate it back to the English. So we kind of come up with this name that we're going to build this Maha Resort. And then the shape we chose was more like a water theme that we were going with, right? Because of the location of our resort. So we kind of chose this seashell looking project, right? So the casino is more like a seashell shape, which also has a meaning in it's tied to the Buddhism, but also it symbolized the rebirth, the birth, right? And that's what we were kind of going for. Like, this is going to change. It's a new beginning for the Pattaya in Thailand. So that's some of the things we thought through from a design perspective.
Yeah, that's exactly I think from our perspective, what we kind of looked from the big picture in, we tried to make a lot of the elements inside the casino, inside the hotel, in the grounds, obviously as great as we can. But, what really led us down that path was, we looked at the overall design, and it's pretty cool. There's shells you can find in most of the structure. There's some open parts. There's some kind of enclosed. We had a multi-purpose arena near the property. That too was sort of a shell where it would open, sort of like a dome that would open and close. And I think that was really our wow kind of factor, was what that shape was like. And I think another thing that is pretty cool, we tried to bring, sort of that Bangkok street market type of feel. So we designed an area, outdoor area, where local vendors can set up shop almost like a street market, and they can rotate based on different vendors, have little festivals. But we tried to bring a lot of the cultural, not just the cultural flair, but actually bring the locals in with, the different activities that was going on. So, that a lot of different elements.
Yeah, it was a perfect mix up, I would say, modern, but as well as keeping that cultural element of Thailand.
Yep.
There's a lot of chatter. At least 2 years ago, there was a G2E in Singapore. Everybody was talking about Osaka, Japan, MGM. And at the most recent G2E, Asia and Macau, that was mostly silent, that topic. Everybody was buzzing about Thailand. Why does Thailand, and let's just use a comparison for now, just for conversation, with Osaka. Why does Thailand make the case why it makes even more sense or gives us more reason to be excited than Osaka or Japan?
My two quick thoughts, and then Ashish, you can have my two quick thoughts are the tourism market is very strong there already, and there's a lot of affordability. I think those two things make it, kind of a perfect a destination for a resort like this. Where Japan, I think, get a little bit, it's a little bit pricier. That's my thoughts on that.
No, exactly. I think if you look at Thailand, Thailand already has a solid international visitors coming, but you also look at some of the Thai people also going to neighboring countries like Cambodia, Singapore, right? So Thailand makes a lot of sense because you already have the visitors, but then you can also have local that is traveling abroad to gamble. It can all stay in the country. That's why the Thailand makes a lot of sense. And Thailand visitation is going up everything. So they're attracting more and more visitors. So it was a perfect location to put an integrated resort because that will even help attract even more visitation. The family visitation, right?
And as you mentioned, it's surrounded by gaming already. It's sort of along its border. So it makes sense as the next location, really. Not really. It's not trying to tread new territory. It's actually just continuing and enhancing an already existing sort of way forward.
So let's set the stage to the final day where you do the presentation. And to clarify, the presentation is targeted to the Thai government who's skeptical, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Give you each 60 seconds. Make the case for the Thai casino.
Yeah, so look, we presented our design, how this is going to help, not just us. Like I said, we have to be financially viable company, but we also, the government making $680 million in the revenue that is now they can reinvest back in the community and infrastructure on top of what commitment we made, right? So that was, we were trying to differentiate ourselves that we are not just in it to make money. Like, yes, we have to make money, but we were more than happy to share our profitability to build the community around better. And we're going to follow the policies. We had a solid game plan in terms of responsible gaming piece as well, right? Also sex trafficking, you call it, right? The sustainability, the plan was pretty solid in terms of how we can help Thai economy grow into this and diversify into this fun economy, as Steve mentioned before, right? By building this integrated resort.
Not sure if I can add much more to that. One thing I would say is, the case is essentially that it's a win-win.
Yeah.
There are elements that are happening now that this will help clean up by legitimizing, putting some rules, structure, compliance, responsibility around that already will help in sort of the societal sort of field. But then, the revenues are going to help on the business side of things. And all of that, in turn, helps the people of Thailand, whether it's through revenues that the government collects and then reinvest in the community, or also the sort of the cleanup that's going to happen, not, literally, but the cleanup as far as reputation, opportunities, illegal gaming, black market, gaming, all these kinds of things that will get cleaned up just by the legitimacy and the rules and regs that come with a integrated resort and all the policy around it. It's a win-win. That's really what it is.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. That people are aware that there is the issue of corruption or political instability in Thailand, but maybe this integrated resort, because the requirements and rules are so strict and stringent, and you have to follow these to stay in the game, that maybe it elevates the rest of some of those weaker spots that Thailand faces in regard to whether it's corruption or policies or following policies.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a cure-all, but they're also not, Thailand isn't going to be the trailblazer in this. So the way to do it right, there is a model for it all around the world. So we know that it works, right? Gaming in the US, gaming in Asia, across Europe, it's there. There's a lot to draw from to see how you can do it the right way, just by example, or what things you want to improve and add on. There's a lot of variations in the rules and regulations across jurisdictions. So there's not a one size fits all, but the general framework of how to do it right and how to make it economically and socially viable and beneficial is already there. This is just making it even better. So that's the good part. You don't have to go into uncharted territory. This has already been done.
Ashish, you said the name of the property was Maha?
The Maha Resort, yes.
How did Maha finish up? So there were 6 teams, right?
Yes. Obviously, we didn't finish first, but we don't know where we finished because they only announced the first place winner.
Okay.
But I would say
yeah. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, we have to defend ourselves a little bit. So yeah. I think they kind of, I don't know, take this for what it's worth. But they said this is basically one of the few, I can't quote it, so I don't know if it was the only, so I'll say one of the few to be safe, years where almost every team, if not every team, received first place votes. So it was a matter of, down to the wire. It was really tough. They had to pick, one or two sort of key moments that, rang in their hearts. Fortunately, we weren't one of those chosen, but really the feedback, we were like expecting we would hear something, like, oh, you guys could have did this better, that better. But essentially, none of the teams really heard anything negative. And I don't mean negative. Even the constructive criticism was not really criticism. It was constructive, but it was almost like, geez, if everybody is good, somebody just did it a little bit better. It was one of those kind of things. So we felt pretty proud. You're going to have to pick one. And, you had a lot of strong talent, a lot of diverse thinking, just a lot of smart people in a room together. You're bound to come up with something good, obviously, everybody benefited, for it.
Yeah. And I would say we learned a lot from each other, right? Because we all had a different experience from a different industry, just kind of sharing our ideas with each other and working on this project. I think we gained a lot of valuable knowledge. And I think this was the first year where the AI was heavily used as part of the project, right? So when you introduce the AI, the design and everything you build, I mean, that it becomes difficult to differentiate the clear winner, right? Because now you have a lot more access to AI that you didn't have previous.
You didn't need an architect on the team.
Yeah, you didn't need an architect. Like, you're not manually drawing anything. You like ChatGPT is
right.
Like, create this design for me, right? So there was a lot of fantastic looking designs for the resorts and the business case as well. So yeah, it was fantastic overall experience, and everyone, I think, put their best foot forward, and the presentation was indeed very, very sharp, and business proposals as well. So,
Wow, Ashish, Steve, thank you. Before we say farewell, any final thoughts, either about EDP or the actual project or any takeaways? Steve, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I think my takeaway is that it's tough to appreciate all parts of whether it's EDP or the project itself in the moment. Maybe some more than others can do that, but some of us, I know our group in general is, we were, head down working, and only, I would say, Saturday night were we able to breathe a little bit and sort of let the last 6-7 days sort of sink in. Especially Ashish and I shared a flight home, and it just kind of, it was, one of those like, geez, that was quite a whirlwind. So you really can't appreciate all that you have to go through at the time. Obviously, it's quite, strenuous, exhausting, I would even say. But afterwards, once you kind of revitalize yourself a little bit, the learnings, the networking, the opportunities to kind of share and discuss, you can now finally take it in. And now you're kind of like, you wish in hindsight, you could almost like do it again in a sense. It's that.
No, it was also like the day one when they announced the team, we were like 9 strangers sitting at the table, not knowing each other, right? And in that 7 day, we became like the best friend, right? And luckily we never had any personality clash, much as everyone is very competitive by nature, right? Because the positions we are in and everything else. But luckily we had no personality clash, and the way we gel as a team, we almost became a family in that 7 days, right? We had a lot of fun with each other. We did the work, but we also had a lot of fun for sure, right?
Well, listen, thank you. Looking forward to visiting Maha and Pattaya in the near future.
The Maha way.
It's the Maha way.
It's the Maha.
Yeah. No, listen, Steve, Ashish, thank you very much.
A pleasure.
Our pleasure. Thank you for inviting us.